Emotions are shooting high into the stratosphere. Now, this is after Trump tweeted a few choice words aimed at a group of Democratic congresswomen. Now, in his tweet, he called out the women for attacking the U.S., but not the governments from the countries he said they originally came from, even suggesting that they go back and then return to the U.S. Now, the tweet even prompted a reaction from across the Atlantic in the UK, where British prime ministers called the president's remarks completely unacceptable. So I got to bring in our 360 view. Live in studio, our political panel. We turn to Chris Naim, founder of the Naim Group, and Reese Everson, attorney and founder of Babs in the Workplace, and on her own book tour right now. So thank you for taking us out, a little time out of your day to talk about this very important subject. I mean, you couldn't write a book, and the timing that goes with the headlines go right with it.
Oh my God.
Reese, I got to start with you. Did you find the President Trump's tweets over the weekend to be offensive?
Offensive? That would be the understatement of the day. Scotty, I can't think of anything that's more reprehensible coming from the #1 seat in the country, of the highest possible office that you could hold, telling people who are frankly just as American as he is to go back to their country. I mean, if we need to send these women back to their country, can we send him back to Scotland or back to Russia where his family's from? Because frankly, these women, 3 of them were born in the United States. And so how dare you tell women that because they desire to see the best possible America that we can be instead of the America that we're currently showing ourselves to be, instead of telling these women that their desire to see a better American is unacceptable, you tell them to go back to their country? I mean, this is reprehensible. Where do you get off saying these sorts of things?
Well, and we hear that emotion right there. And Chris, you've heard that emotion. We've heard it all weekend, and I truly believe that is sincere. At the same time, President Trump came back and said, listen, I was defending Nancy Pelosi in this issue. Last week, it was Nancy Pelosi versus these women in their own, these women in her party. They were fighting each other. I was going for once, defending Nancy. Do you believe that that was President Trump's intentions in this?
So it's certainly gotten, the tone in politics has gotten to the most intense it's ever been. We know that. I think we have to, it was personal. I mean, some of these are the loudest members in the House. I think we'd agree on the Democrat side. So they get a lot of attention. They've used vulgar language to describe the president personally. But let's look at the policy. You know, is it reprehensible for people to kill people in this country that are illegal immigrants and not be deported? Is it legal for us to have a border policy that Congress has totally failed on? The president's trying to grapple with that. So I think this is really Congress's fault. Those issues at the border, Congress's fault. So we have to break away from the tone for a minute and look at the policies. And these particular members are, some of them just lie about things that aren't actually happening, but they're the loudest, they're the rudest, and then when they get checked, they're crying. I mean, let's focus on the issues that are still outstanding, and it's Congress's responsibility.
Well, I love the idea that you say we're going to focus on the issues, but you've got to come back and say, he's got a point there, but both sides are pretty loud. You got to look at, you know, everybody says that Ms. Cortez, she is the Trump of the House right now. She knows how to get her message out. She does a lot of the same things on the Democrat side that President Trump does on the Republican side. So is this not the perfect storm for both of them? And to their own bases, you have to admit, both sides getting energized and more polarized. Whether that's good or not, that's for us to talk about.
Okay, time out. Absolutely not. I call a flag on the play. There's absolutely no similarity between a woman who's speaking up on behalf of the people
using the F word about the president,
who elected her to represent
using the F word.
Their community. Well, I mean, I've been to Brooklyn before, and I've heard Brooklyn people use the F word before, so I don't think that's uncommon. But these people elected AOC, the people from Michigan elected Congresswoman Rashida, the people in Minnesota elected the other Congresswoman, and Boston elected Congresswoman Pressley. Why? Because they believe that these voices represent their community and stand up for the rights that they believe in. So when you have these women who have gone to visit what they've called the concentration camps, or akin to concentration camps, and said, this is not the America that we represent. This is not who we say we are, and who have said that what is going on in this country does not represent the values that we try to hold. You have a president of the United States say, you are not even American enough to criticize, and because you're not truly an American, and dog whistling, because you're not truly American, you need to go back. That is not a statement from a president, that's a statement from a racist in chief, and we're 2 steps away from ethnic cleansing at this point.
But that's the thing, Chris, can President Trump do any criticisms of these women at this point without seeing this type of emotion on the other side?
It's a situation where we have to step away from the emotion. It's an emotional discussion where logic is kind of falling to the side. Like, as an Iraq veteran that's been out there in war, I find it ridiculous, obnoxious for people that have not worked in the Border Patrol, have not been in the military, that have not been out there living that, to just so offhandedly compare federal agents that are strained because Congress won't do their job. Just so you understand, those women won't do their job. And frankly, they should be working with the president to get it done. To make comments about concentration camps, it's annoying, it's obnoxious, and that's why those far-left members that's why the Democrats are running back to the center, because that's just so ridiculous and far off for people that have never lived it like I have and like others have. So,
well, and that's the conversation right there, is that there's a lot of emotion involved on both sides of it. Both sides feel completely justified in their actions.
Less people have been deported under this president, Scotty, than the last two presidents. Why don't we talk about that?
Well, and
why don't we talk about the truth? Let's get
these
these Democrats on the record talking about the issues and the facts where they'll fall straight on their face. Let's do that.
Well, and that's it. Are we seeing that? Are we not seeing more about the emotion right now than we're necessarily about the facts on both sides that are coming out to? And is that helping?
Why did President Obama and President Clinton deport more people? How could we live in a country where the law is enforced, that are on the books?
If you will, Chris, there's a grave distinction between the due process of deportation versus holding someone in a facility where they're getting no rights, where they're not receiving fresh, where they're not even allowed to shower. I would honestly prefer, and you probably as well would agree, it's more humane to deport someone and send them back home than to hold them in a cell without proper food, without proper nutrition, without proper heat. I would say that that's actually a better way to treat people and more humane.
I would agree. Congress can solve this in one day. One day, but they don't want to do it because there's advantages to this problem continuing, and both parties have benefited from it for decades.
Trump's benefiting, and his party are benefiting from the financial investments of the Border Patrol, of having people in these camps. There are financial benefits.
Here's my question.
They're underfunded.
Well, do you think Democrats benefit? Let's look at last week. You did have Nancy Pelosi fighting with the newly elected members. They were divided. That was the headline. Yeah. Now, thanks to President Trump, they're united. So are they not benefiting now from the president coming against them?
I would say they are, and they kind of have to. But here's the truth of the matter. It was wrong for Nancy Pelosi to go after these women, right? Okay, these women were standing up. They're very vociferous, and they're speaking to a demographic of people, the young millennials, who believe a little differently than some of our older predecessors, and that may be different than the group concepts, staying on message. And so they're a little out there with that. But you don't admonish the members of your party in that way. And so now you've opened the door so that the president of the United States feels comfortable speaking with disrespect, the helmet disrespect to these women who are simply saying, we deserve to be a better America.
Does it not benefit President Trump, though, for the Democratic Party to go more towards the progressive wing of the Cortezes and Ocasio-Cortez? Does it not benefit then to the more moderate Joe Biden's wing that are the ones in the middle of the road of the Democratic Party?
Politics has become warfare at this point. My only takeaway there is these are strong, capable women that like to use the F word, that like to talk like they're drunk in a bar, and then when they get hit back, all of a sudden it's like the rules aren't fair.
Let's take a break real quick. They are talking at a press conference right now. I want to take you to hear their words.
Those battling substance abuse disorder and a host of other things, it was impossible not to think of the trauma that is being inflicted upon children every day at our border. At the end of the day, if we improve the conditions of children in a cage, they are still in a cage. And we are viscerally, vigorously, and fundamentally opposed to the criminalizing, the vilifying, the mass detention and deportation of migrant families who are simply doing what is their legal human right, and that is to seek asylum.
So this is the same, everybody's at least staying along the same messaging, same narrative. Real quick, how does this end? And how does this benefit?
The bottom line is that right now we have a racist in chief, and he's dog whistling, and he's making calls to the American people and saying it's okay to be racist. It's fine to use the F word in debate, but when you start telling people that they're not American and they need to go home and that they shouldn't be here, we're 2 steps away from ethnic cleansing.
Your response?
I think that's just absolutely ridiculous, and it doesn't warrant a response.
And then the question is, though, can you respond?
People are coming to this country because it's great.
I think
that's what it is.
Right.
They're coming here because it's great. There's rules. People aren't following the rules. There's a law. They're not following the law. And there's a lot of other terrible things happening in this country. We need to address them. It's Congress's fault. The president's trying to deal with it.
But let me just point this out. You two have had a much more respectful conversation than we've seen down the street. And that's all that I asked for, and I thank you both for doing that.
We should be in Congress.
I 100% agree with that.
Reese 2020.
Thank you, guys.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.